Hello there, and welcome to Play the Game with Steve. Villains Beyond, Episode 10, Zola. In this episode, we'll look at Zola's different stats on all three stages. We're also going to take a look at some of the common mistakes that happen within this scenario. We're going to take a look at some of the villain cards and how they'll interact with our heroes. And then finally, what you're here for, we're going to take a look at some of the modular sets to make it more thematic, difficult, or just straight out more enjoyable. All this and more on this episode of Villains Beyond, Zola. Alright, let's break him down. Alright, so Zola is a android and a Hydra traded on all three of his stages. He also has Retaliate on all three. On his stage 1, he has 12 hit points per player. He has a scheme of 2, an attack of 1, so that's pretty low. His stage 2, he schemes for 2, attacks for 2, has 14 hit points per player, but also has a when revealed, search the encounter deck and discard pile for the test subject side scheme and then reveal it. Then shuffle the encounter deck. And on his final stage, he has 3 scheme, 2 attack, and 16 hit points per player, and also has a when revealed to each player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a minion and reveals it. And that is going to be very important because that's where a lot of mistakes happens on the reveals and then to put into plays with Zola. All right, let's go take a look at the main scheme. The main scheme is called the Island of Dr. Zola. On side 1A, it has a setup to search the encounter deck for Hydra Prison and reveal it. And also, each player searches the encounter deck for a copy of an Ultimate Bio Servant and puts into play Engage with them and then shuffles the encounter deck. On its stage 1B, it has 6 per player. It starts at 0 and goes up by 1 per player. And has a force response. After resolving step 1 of the villain phase, place 1 test subject counter here. Then if there are 3 or more test subject counters, you discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a minion is discarded and put that minion into play, engaged with the first player, and then remove 3 test subject counters from this scheme. All right, so this again is a put into play and not a when revealed, and we'll take a look at some of those when we see the minions. Now, if you do lose that 6 per player threshold, we will go to stage 2A. And if it goes to stage 2A, all of the test subject counters that were on the Island of Dr. Zola will get removed. All right, so here it is when revealed, each player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a minion and reveals it. So again, this is another time where we will reveal the minion that it will be coming into play. And then shuffle the encounter deck. Then we have the Mad Doctor, which starts at 1 per player, goes up by 1 per player, has a cap of 8 per player max. And if this stage is completed, we will lose the game. And again, the force response, after resolving step 1 of the villain phase, you place 1 test subject counter here. Then if there's 3 or more test subject counters here, you discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a minion is discarded and put it into play, engage with the first player, and then remove 3 test subject counters. Now, one thing to specify as well is if there's an effect that puts a third counter here, this force response will only trigger after resolving step 1. So after you place threat on the main scheme, this is when you check how many counters there are. And let's say there's 6 counters, well, you'll place a counter and then you'll remove 3. So then there'll be 4 counters. And then the next turn you'll do it again and again. So that is it for the main scheme. So Hydra Prison is a side scheme that comes into the setup. So as you begin the game, when revealed, each player will search their deck, discard pile, and hand for a hero-specific ally and place it face down beneath the scheme. We'll then place X threat on the scheme, where X is the total cost of all allies beneath it. And then each player will shuffle their deck. And then if it is defeated, when defeated, remove the scheme from the game. So it's not, you don't shuffle it back into, so it's, now the keyword is victory, but now they didn't have that before. You just remove it from the game, and then you'll return each ally beneath it to its owner's hand. If you are playing a hero that does not have a signature ally, then this side scheme will still come into play, will remain at 1, and it'll just be easy to defeat. All right, now let's take a look at his signature cards. One thing that I particularly enjoy about this scenario is the treachery cards. So Zola is a scientist, and he doesn't really interact with the heroes that much. He only has 3 cards in his kit that actually interact with the heroes, and that is the Mind Ray, which says when revealed, if you're an alter ego, Zola will scheme and then he will confuse you. And then when revealed, if you're in hero form, Zola attacks you and then you are stunned. So again, you can see like he's a big guy, he's powerful, because when he does interact with you, he stuns or confuses you. And this, I think, is very thematic. And these are the only 3 cards that he has that his character actually interacts with us in his event cards. All right, then he has what he does best. He does his technological advancements. And this is all about what Zola, this scenario, is trying to do. Zola is trying to create some creatures and make them very, very fun. So Insight 1 means when the card is revealed, you will place a threat on the main scheme. And then when revealed, place 1 test subject counter on the main scheme. And this is where you can have more test subject counters or get to 3 test subject counters before the main scheme step 1. As a boost effect, you will place 1 test subject counter on the main scheme. All right, now let's get a look at those creatures he's working on. So the first creature he is working on, and you're going to have one right in your face when you begin the game, is the Ultimate Bioservant. He's a 1 scheme, 1 attack minion with 4 health and comes into play with toughness. Ultimate Bioservant has a star next to the attack because he gets +1 attack for each attachment on it. And then as a boost card, he will give the villain a tough status card. Next on the menu are the Berserker Mutates, and there's 3 copies of these creatures in the deck. And then what this says is a Berserker Mutate, it is a 0 scheme, 2 attack minion with 3 health with quick strike, and also has a boost ability to place 1 test counter on the main scheme, and for each test counter on the main scheme, Zola gets +1 scheme and +1 attack for that activation. So that can make Zola a really big boy. Now the other thing that's very important here, because of the ability off of the main scheme, when a Berserker Mutate would be put into play and it engages the first player, because of the quick stride, that means it will attack you as soon as it comes into play. And then the villain will attack you or scheme, and then the Berserker Mutate will activate again. So if you get him as the one that drops in, he can activate twice on the same turn. So that is pretty dangerous, this little guy here. All right, finally, his big boy, Zola's Mutate. There's 3 copies of Zola's Mutate, a 1 scheme, 2 attack with 5 health minion that has a when revealed to discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a tech attachment is discarded, and then you attach it to the Mutate. As a boost effect, you'll shuffle the Zola's Mutate in the encounter deck, so you're going to have to see one of those pop by. They're going to come in unless they get discarded from another effect. Okay, the other thing here where a lot of people make mistakes is if Zola's Mutate comes in because of the main scheme trigger, which puts it into play, it is not revealed. So you will not discard cards until that attachment is revealed. So that's something very important and a common mistake in this scenario. So now we've seen the creatures. Now let's look at some of the improvements that Zola is working on for those creatures that he's putting in front of us. So the defensive programming is a tech attachment that you attach to the minion with the most remaining hit points without another copy of defensive programming, and then it gets attached. But if you can't, that card is going to gain Surge. And what it says is the attached minion gains the guard trait and +2 hit points. So, and there's 3 copies of that card. Then there's the pain inhibitors. So this is 2 times this attachment. Pain inhibitors, same thing. It attaches with the most remaining hit points without a copy of the pain inhibitors. And then attached minion gets +2 hit points and gains retaliate 1. And then the final upgrade that he's made is the neurological implants. And this again says the same thing. You attach it or else it gains Surge. And the attached minion gets +2 hit points, but also gets +2 scheme and +2 attack. So these attachments are very, very brutal, especially coming in on those mutates or even on those bioservants. Or if you're playing with a different modular sets, attaching to some powerful minions, it can become very dangerous. All right, let's take a look at some of those side schemes he's going to throw at us. He's got 2 copies of test subjects that come into play at 2 per player and have a when defeated, also has the hazard icon. And when defeated, the first player discards card from the top of the encounter deck until they discard a minion. But this one says reveal that minion. So again, this is kind of not the same as what you do when you're discarding cards because of the test subject counters, which is I think why people kind of get confused. So there's only 4 opportunities that Zola has to reveal minions. And the first reveal comes when he goes from stage 2 to stage 3, when the main scheme flips from stage 1 to stage 2, and then finally the 2 test subject side schemes are the only time that you actually reveal the minions. All right, anytime other than that, they are only put into play. So finally, we have his last one, which is Zola's Experiments. It comes in at 3 per player with an acceleration and a force response. After a minion enters play, attach the topmost tech attachment in the encounter discard pile to that minion. So that one he recycles. Now again, if there is a minion that has the same attachment, so as Zola is mutated, discards until he finds a defensive programming, and then the force response will come in, and then he gets another one. We'll just discard if it's the same, and that effect is not going to trigger again. All right, now for the times you've been waiting for. So let's see what suggestions I want to make this villain feel more thematic. Well, the first concept is your allies become captured and transformed. So there's 3 modular sets that kind of play into that. There is the Shadow King with the card Possessed that is going to attach to an ally who the ally is now a minion, and then you can just see Zola experimenting with that. So the Shadow King modular set is something I would highly recommend if you want to have your allies being caught up. Then I would also add the Legions of Hell because of the Fallen Warriors. Again, it's a couple of cards, so you might see it, you might not see it. But thematically, I thought it was really cool that, you know, you're fighting off against this villain, and then Zola's capturing your allies and just doing work on them and manipulating them and transforming them. Obviously, there's all these other nice cards as well from Legions of Hell, but those are the principal ones. And then the final one that I would suggest is the Enchantress modular set that has the Beguiled that kind of steal again your allies, and it goes on to that and makes it a lot more difficult to attack Zola once you have a Seduced on you. So yeah, so thematically, those are the 3 suggestions I would make. Shadow King, Drog, the Legions of Hell, and the Enchantress as a sort of thematics that, uh-oh, my allies are now captured and I have to take them out. My second suggestions in the thematics, well, it's going to be a little bit more difficult and increasing difficulty, is super minions or minion swarm. And again, I love the ransacked armory for this. It does include a couple of guards. It has the jetpack, flamethrower, the hollow field generator, the tech gauntlets. So all these cards, they really they're more attachments, so the minions can have a lot more versatility into what goes on them. So I think I really like that thematic. I use this one a lot against Zola just because it just creates these super minions at some points where they're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to take this guy out? Especially once they get the jetpack. Oh man, it makes it almost impossible to kill. So that would be my first suggestion. My second, to increase difficulty even more, would be the Doomsday Chair. Not only is MODOK a really big ally, but these biomechanical upgrades here, they would attach, they gain Surge, but not only that, is once you defeat that minion, then you only discard this. So all the other attachments would stay on it, and then you have to defeat it again. So that's double trouble, and there's 3 of these bio upgrades, and then obviously MODOK with 2 Doomsday Chairs. So just imagine a MODOK with Retaliate 2 getting a getting a jetpack or getting the +2/+2 could be really, really scary. And then finally, really to increase the difficulty, I really suggest the guerrilla tactics, especially in a multiplayer game with the life-size decoys, that are tough, and then you cannot thwart side schemes from every direction, which adds threat for the number of minions in play. And again, with Zola, you tend to get swarmed a lot. And then obviously the 3 side schemes, the one that gives an acceleration to everyone, the one that gives every enemy +1/+1, and then the hidden in shadows, which is the worst one, that gives everything a hazard icon. So if there's 4 enemies, you're playing like heroic 5 and you're just like, well, I'm gonna die. So there you go. So this one definitely is probably the most challenging guerrilla tactics on that level. And finally, for the lulls, I like to add just a bunch of random minions. I really like Mandrill and Griffin. I think they're pretty cool, and they're like mutated creatures, so they really fit the theme here with Zola. So the Beastie Boys from the Hood scenario pack, I think, is a very fun one, and it's only 4, so it really doesn't take away from what Zola's trying to do. And then they have the Double Trouble card that stuns and confuses, and Beast Mode that says if you have a status card that's negative, you take +1 damage. So I think that's a pretty fun one to add. Secondly, I really like the Menagerie from the Guardians of the Galaxy box. I think it's super fun. You have the servant bots that are super annoying, that have the guard and then patrol, so it takes you out. And then you got the psionic ghost as well that come into play, so that adds even more minions, so that's pretty crazy. Funny enough, I detested this in the collectors thing, but in every other scenario, I actually love this modular set because I think it offers a nice amount of challenge. And obviously the Star Sharks with the quick strike and the 3 attack can make it pretty brutal. So some very strong minions. So then technically now you have 5 minions that can just pop up from the test counter with quick strike, and a three even though it's indirect damage, a 3 quick strike, that means it's attacking you when it comes into play, and then it attacks you after the villain attacks you, and then it attacks you. Man, that's like 2 attacks. That's crazy. So that's 6 damage if it comes out like that. So that's insane. And then finally, to conclude the just for the lulls, I love the from the Mojo pack, the horror set. So I really like this one, the horror. So I like that little stake here, and then I like all the creatures like the werewolf, the vampire, the kraken. The cultist is not that bad, but I just like that. Oh, you have all these really cool horror-y stuff that kind of fits the theme of Zola. So for the lulls, I've tried it. It was okay. The kraken came out twice, so he was pretty brutal. So it's a good thing I was playing solo, because only 6 health is not that bad. But once you start getting in a 4-player game, he's got 24 health there. You're like, well, am I gonna take out Zola or am I gonna take out the Kraken? So, all right, and finally, here are some of the top cards that I would include when I'm facing Zola. If I'm playing aggression, Lie in Wait from the Wasp Hero Pack is really good. It's a maximum of 1 per player, but there's so many minions in this, so this is always going to be a 2 cost for 3 damage. But I think these ones, you should really keep them for the Berserker Mutate. So when they come in with the Quick Strike, this is a good way to get rid of them before they can damage you. So this is my suggestion. Lie in Wait, very good card to kill those Berserkers. Then you have Pin Down for protection. Obviously, there's a lot of minions, and sometimes you won't be able to control all of them at the same time. So if you're playing protection and putting a few Pin Downs in your deck, this is going to be perfect, because then these minions are not going to be as dangerous, and you can really focus on the villain. Injustice, I highly recommend Under Surveillance. That main scheme that only starts at 6 and 8 is pretty low, and once it kind of gets under control, if you can try to get it under control, so this will allow you to flip down, get a bigger hand size and stuff like that. So Under Surveillance, definitely my recommendation against Zola for Justice. In Leadership, coordinated attack is a great one to play because again, you attach to minions, and then what you do is all your allies now take -1 consequential damage when attacking that minion. So again, some of those minions has 5, 7, 9, even if they get those attachments, especially those mutates that can get pretty high. So having the coordinated attack in leadership is just going to allow your allies to just keep punching those minions and staying alive. And then finally, in basics, I really enjoy the ally Snow Guard, the versatility of giving her +3 attack with overkill. This is going to bypass those mutates and just kind of go through them and then just hit the boss without taking retaliate from Zola, which is a good thing. Or the +5 hit points and retaliate, getting rid of some toughs on some of those like bioservants and stuff. There you go, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this little crackdown on what I believe some of the more interesting modular sets here for Zola. Again, if you have any other recommendations, please feel free to leave some in the comments. Let me know what you think about this. And then, yeah, that's it. So all I can say on that, guys, is keep on playing Marvel Champions, have some fun, and just play the game. Ciao, ciao. I'll see you next week for Red Skull.